Have you ever noticed that the harder you try to focus, the more your mind seems to scatter like startled birds? You sit down to work on something important, clench your mental fists, and command your attention to stay put, only to find yourself checking your phone 5 minutes later, wondering how you got there. What if I told you this isn't a sign of weakness or lack of discipline, but reveals a fundamental truth about power that Machiavelli understood centuries ago? And that this one insight could transform not just your focus, but your entire relationship with your own mind. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more insights that challenge how you think about thinking itself. Picture this. You're in a meeting, trying desperately to pay attention while your boss drones on about quarterly projections. The harder you try to focus, the louder your internal monologue becomes. Focus, 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 you tell yourself, which only makes you more aware of how unfocused you are. It's like trying to fall asleep by commanding yourself to sleep. The very effort becomes the obstacle. This phenomenon shows up everywhere in our lives. The student who studies harder and harder only to blank out during the exam. The person trying to be spontaneous who becomes increasingly rigid. The anxious individual who fights their worry only to become more anxious about being anxious. We've been taught that willpower is like a muscle. The more you flex it, the stronger it gets. But what if this fundamental assumption is not just wrong, but actively harmful? Conventional wisdom tells us that focus is about discipline, about forcing our wandering minds into submission. We download meditation apps, buy productivity planners, and create elaborate systems to wrestle our attention into compliance. Yet despite a multi-billion-dollar industry built around helping us focus better, rates of distraction, anxiety, and mental fatigue continue to skyrocket. There's something deeper at play here. A psychological principle that reveals why our efforts to control our minds often backfire spectacularly. It has to do with a paradox that philosophers have pondered for millennia, and that modern neuroscience is only beginning to understand. The more directly you pursue something, the more elusive it becomes. To understand what's really happening, we need to look at how attention actually works in the brain. Neuroscientists distinguish between two types of attention: focused attention and open monitoring. Focused attention is like a spotlight, narrow, intense, deliberately directed. Open monitoring is more like ambient lighting, wide, receptive, effortlessly aware. Here's the crucial insight. When we try to force focus, we're actually activating what psychologists call the trying mind, a state characterized by tension, effort, and resistance. This triggers the brain's default mode network, the very system responsible for mind wandering. It's like stepping on the gas and the brake simultaneously. Research by Dr. Judson Brewer at Yale showed that the harder people try to meditate, the more their minds wander. The effort itself becomes a form of mental noise. This isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature. Our brains evolved not to focus on one thing indefinitely, but to constantly scan for threats and opportunities. The hyper-focused predator who misses the larger predator approaching from behind doesn't survive to pass on its genes. But there's an even deeper layer to this paradox. Psychologist Dr. Daniel Wegner discovered something remarkable in his famous white bear experiments. When people were told not to think about a white bear, not only did they think about it more, but they showed a rebound effect, thinking about white bears even more intensely once the instruction was lifted. This reveals something profound about the nature of mental effort. The very act of trying to control our thoughts creates what Wegner called ironic process theory. Our monitoring system, constantly checking to see if we're succeeding, inadvertently keeps the forbidden thought active in consciousness. It's like having a security guard whose job is to watch for intruders, but whose very presence reminds you that intruders might exist. This brings us to the heart of Machiavelli's insight about power, though he was writing about politics, not psychology. Machiavelli understood that true power often comes not from force, but from understanding the natural flow of human nature. and working with it rather than against it. He wrote, "Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved. Not because cruelty is virtuous, but because it aligns with psychological reality." The same principle applies to your relationship with your own mind. The mind, like a wild horse, cannot be broken through force. It can only be tamed through understanding, patience, and strategic non-resistance. This doesn't mean becoming passive or giving up on goals. It means recognizing that sustainable focus comes not from muscular effort, but from what we might call effortless effort. A state of relaxed alertness where attention flows naturally toward what matters. Ancient wisdom traditions understood this paradox intimately. The Taoist concept of Wu Wei, often translated as non-action, doesn't mean doing nothing. It means acting in accordance with natural forces rather than against them. Like a skilled sailor who doesn't fight the wind but uses it to reach their destination, the person who understands the nature of attention doesn't battle their mind, but learns to navigate its currents. This reframe is profoundly liberating. Instead of seeing your wandering mind as an enemy to be conquered, you begin to see it as information to be understood. That urge to check your phone during important work isn't a moral failing. It's your nervous system signaling that something needs attention. Maybe you're overwhelmed, understimulated, or avoiding something emotionally difficult. The distraction becomes a messenger rather than a saboteur. Research by Dr. Michael Posner on attention networks shows that the most effective focus comes from a state he calls effortless attention, where the mind is simultaneously relaxed and alert, like a cat watching a mouse hole. This state can't be forced. It can only be cultivated through understanding and practice. Many people resist this truth because it challenges our cultural mythology of willpower and control. We want to believe we can simply decide to focus and make it happen through sheer force of will. But neuroscience reveals that sustainable attention is more like growing a garden than operating a machine. It requires the right conditions, patience, and trust in natural processes. So how do you work with this psychological reality rather than against it? The key is shifting from attention management to what I call attention cultivation. First, practice the art of gentle noticing. Instead of fighting distraction, become curious about it. When your mind wanders during important work, don't immediately force it back. Pause for a moment and ask, what is my system trying to tell me right now? Maybe you need a break, a glass of water, or to address an underlying anxiety. This single shift from self-criticism to self-curiosity can transform your relationship with your own mind. Second, create what psychologists call environmental design. Since willpower is unreliable, design your environment to support natural focus. This isn't about blocking distractions. It's about creating conditions where focused attention can emerge organically. Clear physical space, specific times for deep work, and rituals that signal to your brain it's time to settle into sustained attention. Third, practice what I call productive procrastination. When you notice resistance to a task, instead of forcing yourself through it, ask what easier version of the task you could do right now. Can't write that important email? Write a terrible first draft. Can't focus on complex analysis? Organize the materials you'll need. This works with your brain's natural tendency to avoid difficulty rather than against it. Fourth, develop what neuroscientist Dr. Amishi Jha calls attention fitness. Just as physical fitness isn't built through one intense workout but through consistent, moderate exercise, attention fitness is built through regular, gentle practice. 5 minutes of mindful breathing daily will do more for your focus than periodic heroic efforts to concentrate for hours. The most important shift is learning to distinguish between concentration and attention. Concentration is narrow, effortful, and exhausting. Attention is spacious, natural, and sustainable. When you're truly attentive, you're not gripping the object of focus like a vice. You're holding it lightly, like a butterfly that might fly away if grasped too tightly. People who integrate this understanding report a profound shift in their relationship with work and learning. Instead of the familiar cycle of forcing focus, getting distracted, and feeling frustrated, they develop what one client described as friendly focus, a way of engaging with tasks that feels more like dancing than wrestling. The challenges are real. Our culture rewards the appearance of intense effort, and you might initially feel like you're being lazy when you stop forcing focus. You'll need to develop tolerance for the discomfort of not controlling your mind directly. And you'll need patience as you learn to trust natural processes over familiar patterns of mental force. Here's the paradox that Machiavelli understood about power, and that applies equally to the power of focus. The more directly you grasp for it, the more it slips through your fingers. But when you understand its nature and work with it skillfully, it becomes a reliable ally rather than an unpredictable force. Your wandering mind isn't your enemy. It's an ancient system trying to keep you safe and help you navigate a complex world. The path to sustainable focus isn't through conquest but through collaboration, not through forcing but through finesse. I want to challenge you to try this for just 1 week. The next time you catch your mind wandering during important work, don't immediately force it back. Instead, take a breath and ask with genuine curiosity, what is my system trying to tell me right now? See what you discover about the hidden intelligence of distraction. True focus isn't the ability to concentrate harder, it's the wisdom to know when to hold on and when to let go, when to direct attention and when to let it flow naturally. In a world that's constantly demanding your attention, this might be the most revolutionary skill you can develop. What's one thing you've been trying to force in your life that might benefit from a more indirect approach? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one and often find your insights more valuable than my own.